right. Hopefully we have no issues, but we're back with another episode. But first, the sponsors. Head over to www.johnbartoloshow.com. Go check out a complete list of the sponsors there. Hopefully we have no echo issues. I'm going to bring a few of those sponsors up. The ones I like and love. Gallo Technologies, Rhino Metals, Blackwater Ammunition, CAA Gear Up USA, our thermal imaging technologies coming down in price. Go check out Pulsar, Volquartsen Firearms. Can't leave them out. Got to thank Volquartsen.
Scotty V.
Big shout out to Scott. And Enforce Weapon Lights, among others. Appreciate the sponsors. A complete list is down below. Please, guys, go support the sponsors. Without them, the show wouldn't be possible. Thank you. Got a special guest today. Bo Sandoval. Now, listen to me. You know, people don't realize our friendship and everything else, and you say, what the hell are we going to talk about? People don't realize behind the scenes we've grown close.
We talk about a lot.
Talk close to the mic.
What are we gonna? I was wondering what we're gonna talk about. Like, dude, we talk about everything every day.
Every day. What are we going to talk about? What are we going to cover? So I want to start first. Can I talk about this? The UFC?
Let's do it.
Renovations?
Yeah.
Things going on. Things are happening. What's happening?
Oh, just growth and development. You know, the UFC is never going to sit still. So, been 4 years now, 4 years and a month since we've opened that facility and done a lot of training through it, a lot of development, a lot of assessment. And it's that time. When you look at the world of training and the evolution of it, and you're trying to be at the tip of the spear of it, I mean, that evolution happens fast. So
right.
We've quickly outgrown our capabilities and ourselves and our dreams and aspirations, our ambitions, and what we're trying to do in the performance world with fighting. It's outgrown that facility a little bit. So we're doing a little overhaul in a few spaces, physical therapy, the strength and conditioning space, basically the main performance floor downstairs. And it's to accommodate, again, some of these evolved training schemes, some of these evolved methodologies and use of space that we've grown into over the last 4 years.
What is performance?
Yeah.
Give everybody some insight into what performance actually is, because I don't think people know.
Sure. You know, when people look at the process, everything kind of revolves around training. It's easy to get down the rabbit hole of training. Everything is preparation and training. To me, performance is after all of your training and all your investment, whatever those investments are, and that's the arms race, right? Everyone gets to pick and choose what they're going to invest in their preparation. It's the culmination of those things and recovering from it to get into the day of competition for us inside the octagon on fight day as close to 100% as possible. So essentially you're realizing your current physical and mental potential in that one moment.
It's crazy because I didn't realize how. Now, we do have a lot to talk about because when I took a deeper tour, the deep tour, the Bo Sandoval tour of the UFC, I realized how important recovery was to you guys and how important making sure these young athletes are taking care of their body and how important that was. That was eye-opening to me, how much time you guys spent in that space. Yeah,
no doubt. I mean, the age-old conversation between coach and athlete has usually been, we're going to outwork this guy, or hey, we're going to outwork this team. We're going to work harder than anyone else in America. There's coaches out there I've worked for. Their slogan is, we're the hardest working team in America. I laugh because everybody works hard. They all work hard, especially at that level. They all work hard.
You want to be the smartest.
So what we've shifted the conversations down to, it's kind of silly sounding sometimes. I'm like, hey, we're going to outsleep this guy. Hey, we're going to out-eat this guy. We're going to out-rest this guy. And all jokes aside, we spend a lot of time devising plans how to take, the fighters and the coaching staffs that we work with, they're very educated. They're very sharp at refining tools, installing systems, and really breaking opponents down to figure out a way to beat them. They're really good at that. Most of our conversations and how we influence their process is how we manage some of that load to just install little windows of recovery. Like, where are we having opportunities to recover from the great work that we've just prescribed?
I'll say something that I thought was a little crazy. Gordon Ryan was on Rogan, and he mentioned, never taking a day off.
Yeah.
I train 7 days a week. how do you feel about that? Is that like a stupid, when people say I train 7 days a week?
Yeah, so you're just grabbing a hold of the headline. If you listen to Gordon when he talks a little deeper into it,
there you go. Go deep.
It doesn't mean that he's going balls to the wall live rounds every single day of those 7 days and 2 and 3 times a day. He understands that when he's beat down, he might be in there one time that day, and it might be just drilling. He also understands that on a day when he feels like he's getting ready for a competition and he needs to go hard, but knows he's beat down, it's okay for him that day. He's like, I'll tap out 7 times in class that day because I know I'm not going to fight through this. I've already got the candle burnt from both ends, but I need the reps. So he's managing his load. And that's essentially what we're doing as well. I wouldn't say we're taking a 7-day week and turn it into a 3-day work week. That doesn't work. You're not going to be able to float at this level. You're going to sink quick. But it's more of management of those opportunities to recover. And so Gordon has, if you listen to his conversation, he's constructed ways to manage his load in training. There are things like that. That's scaling. We call that scaling the work. And then the other easy one is to remove work. Where when we have essentially a decathlete of martial arts, which is what MMA fighters are, they have multiple skills sessions and live round sessions per day: boxing, kickboxing, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, MMA sparring, boxing sparring, whatever the case may be. There's a lot of different ways to slice it. So what a lot of them will do when it comes time to manage workload is they'll remove some of the things that aren't as impactful during that particular time. And this is where we kind of help them decide that. We have certain objectives during training camp. Well, if one of those isn't really a direct objective and we need a window to breathe, we'll remove one of those things. That doesn't mean we're taking a day off. You still got to show up for wrestling practice just because we're removing a pad session with our kickboxing coach, or we're cutting a conditioning session down in half, or whatever the case may be. So it's a management of workload. That's what kind of yields recovery at the end. And everyone is totally different. We have some guys that are super resilient. I can't tell you how stumped we are at figuring out where that resiliency comes from. Some of them, they're 35 years old and they're still that resilient. Others are 22 years old and extremely resilient. We have 22-year-olds that have zero durability, cannot bounce back from one training session to another. So that's all over the map in terms of the level of their resiliency to be able to recover from session to session.
Have we been training athletes the wrong way since high school? Like that whole no water, run an extra lap. Is that dead? Is it safe to say that's dead, or that doesn't make sense?
So I'm still a firm believer in you've got to instill little methods for toughness. You've got to challenge people's psyche as they're getting accustomed to training, kind of thing. But to mandate a holistic regimen year round that says we don't drink water when we train, there's probably 11
like, where does
million,
stupid meet tough?
Yeah, exactly. Now, every now and then to throw a wrench in the gears to mess with someone's psyche a little bit, I think that's important, because especially in fighting, I mean, there's no script to a fight when you step in the cage. All kinds of crazy scenarios play out. So I'm definitely a big believer in some of those mental challenges. I don't think they need to be the fundamental backbone of what your program is built around.
Yeah, because I grew up with triple sessions, and if your arm was broken, you still went because that was how it was. And I think in some ways, though, that's kind of dying off because everybody wants to, and this is gonna sound cliche, everybody wants to inject the science into it now. Yep. Everybody wants to say, but the science says this. I thought when I was a kid it was so dumb having no water breaks, but that was me. I thought that was the dumbest shit.
So the hard work, the diligent, the consistent work is what yields the majority of the results. The science is what gives you the precision. So you can. That's why I still have guys that work with high school, college athletes. They're like, look, pretty simple. If we just get them stronger, they'll get better. And it's like, yeah, to an extent, 100%. But if you've got a top 5%er, a kid competing, for crowns in an individual sport or even in a team sport every year, his level of marginal improvement, his one, you're talking about really digging into the granular level of things to find where we can squeak out improvements. We're really hunting where we can improve that person. But if I take the average Jimmy who's never trained before and I just throw a routine regimen at him that's just aimed at getting strong, sure, everything will improve across the board. But as training age gets more sophisticated and training age gets deeper, you've really got to refine your approach, and that's where the precision piece comes in.
Now the data becomes incredibly critical, and I learned how much you guys actually crunch data in there during my walk around, and it's pretty impressive actually. It's you guys are really knee deep in the data, and I feel like people don't do that enough when they're training. They're not understanding what they should be doing.
Sure.
It's probably the best way to do it. Say it.
Accumulating data takes a village. I mean, that's tough. If I was a practitioner on my own, running a center and working with a few fighters here and there, it's really tough to do that at a high level and accumulate all that information, aggregate it, organize it, disseminate it, and share it. You know, we have a team that has decided, hey, that's part of our pledge to the sport. We happen to be employed by the largest league in the game, so we have access to the largest number of elite athletes per weight class across the board internationally. It's kind of a responsibility of ours, and one that we've assumed that we're going to gather data, we're going to aggregate that data, we're going to build some compelling stories around it, and we're going to share it, because exactly what you said, no one's really been in a great position to do that. There have been some small pockets of researchers and small pockets of teams that have accumulated some information and shared it, and some of it very significant, just not at the rate or at the volume of something like American football or track and field or things that have been studied and researched for the last 100 years. So that's one of our responsibility philosophies as an institute, is to provide or start providing some levels of data, and cross-check that data and constantly, re-upping it. I'm sure you're going to jump into this in a minute. We've just dished out our second edition of our journal, which is essentially full of data and metrics around fighting and fight statistics, and training data. And this is the second go-round. We produced the first one about a year and a half in, and now here's the second one, because that has evolved quite a bit. And not to mention, our pool of data has 10 times what it was 4 years ago, or 3.5 years ago.
It's actually amazing. And to have the access to that data is invaluable. I mean, to being able to crunch it. And you see this as a coach. People who, I guess the term you look for is squared away. They have all their ducks in a row. Everything's together. Everything's dialed in. You can present a plan, a program. I don't want to get into it because I know it's a sensitive subject in the UFC right now, but then you see coaches come in that have no idea what they're doing, or some idea what they're doing, or maybe you have no fucking clue what they're doing, particularly in the Sanchez situation. You guys just have to almost abstain, right? It's hard, right?
Sure. I mean, one thing you got to understand, now that's an outlier, right? But
right.
Watch it unfold there. That's an odd situation. But in general, you have to understand that every coach there, every athlete, their context is entirely different. Where they're at in their stage of development is entirely different. What American Top Team has built down there and what they have access to and their depth of resources, I mean, they can really get into a granular level of what they're doing with their schemes and with their fighters, as compared to, say, a gym that just opened up, in Oklahoma, that they've got, a room full of amateurs, maybe a couple of pro fighters, and they're being coached by a couple people that might have, fought pro earlier in their careers. They're in the early stages. So what do you think they're going to be spending their daily regiments on? Fundamentals. We need to know how to box. We need to know how to wrestle. They're not going to get overly indulged into schemes around recovery and schemes around frequency and volume just yet. We're trying to establish a training culture. We're trying to establish consistency, our messaging. What's our team going to be known for? What's our mantra? So, and then there's a spectrum in between that Oklahoma gym and American Top Team. There's everything in between. So in our eyes, if you look at our fundamental approach and our fundamental purpose, why we're there to help the ATTs and the Oklahoma beginner gym and everything in between. So one of the first things we got to do when they come through the doors, we got to recognize where they're at and where can we be helpful. We're a service provider. Where can I supplementally install myself to be able to assist their process with where it's at this moment in context? And that, a lot of people are like, man, that's tricky. That, to me, that's the funnest part, because you're really getting to know someone with where they're at currently. And now we can decide what's appropriate in terms of installing just just tiny little doses of improvement.
So you try to put the blinders on a little bit as to maybe whatever else they took into the gym with them.
Absolutely. And it's not my position to judge what track they're on, right or wrong, or how far up they are. That's not my point. My point is forward, only forward. What can we do to help push them forward? And if you're really devoted to elevating the game of MMA, as the Institute is, if you're really devoted to speeding up this evolution of the sport, you got to be willing to help all levels of it. You got to be willing to, we have a fighter say, if like just recently, if Francis Ngannou comes in and he's got 2 or 3 other guys under his belt with him, maybe they don't fight for our promotion yet, maybe whatever. They're his training partners. That guy asks a question or wants to talk training, 100% we're going to take advantage of that opportunity and chat with him for a little bit. And we would do that. We do that across the board for anyone that comes through that door.
Is it safe to say, though, the UFC has crossed over to where we've talked about this, just specializing or just being an exceptional athlete isn't enough anymore? We're seeing guys that were freaking unbelievable at 25, at 35, they don't have that longevity. So it really is a testament to building from the ground up, and at some point bringing in some serious professional help to keep you elevated, because it's a high bar now. Mm-hmm. You can't just come in and be doing spinaroonies and and arm bars from the air.
It's very deceiving because we have some that climb to the top so fast because, you string together 4 or 5 key knockouts in a row. They're entertaining, right? So your entertainment status can climb you to the top quickly. That doesn't necessarily mean your skills have been evaluated to see how you're going to swim when you're inside the top 3. Because when you start getting inside the top 3 and top 5, those guys and girls are super well-rounded. They're good at everything. And if they're not and they squeak up in there, you'll watch. They'll get exploited before long. You'll figure out where that person's weakness is because someone that is well-rounded is going to find it. And how many times have we watched, fighters go through that? Look at some of the ones that are just world-renowned specialists like a Jacare or an Andrade or somebody. You just watch them bulldoze their way through, and then they get to a certain point, a stylistic matchup, and you watch them consistently over and over have struggles with that particular matchup. And then that's when we go into debating mode. Where's the lacking? Is it the physical side? Is it the skills side? Is it the mentality? Or and then you got the armchair quarterback side. Oh, they're too chinny now, or they're too focused on their family, or they don't. There's so many variables that people try to throw in, but there is a point where if you're lacking in one area of your game, you get up to that elite level of the contest. And I refer oftentimes to top 3 to top 5 because those that are swimming up in there consistently, they're good at everything. Man, they've got the full package. And they will exploit you if you're missing one of those.
Are muscles in the bodybuilding sense useless?
We have some impressive physiques in the UFC. I mean, we have, the biggest thing is, can you still deliver energy? Are you energy efficient when you have that? We have some that are, we have some that aren't. And so,
because we see it on the mats, even in the gym. It's like guys come in jacked, and they're not worth shit.
Yeah. Because it's a sport where technique can definitely just rip apart the physique. There's no question. And people are becoming better and better at being snipers. They're so precise. They're so, but to say that, hey, I'm not that good at fighting, so I'm going to outweigh that with just putting a ton of muscle on, I don't think that's the right approach for the sport.
Before, like Eric Anders, for example, said to me, he goes, all that muscle's useless. I had to lose all that muscle from, being a linebacker. Sure. But is it useless, right?
To some extent. Now, one of the things that kind of got himself established in the UFC was being a freaking wrecking ball and coming in and smashing people. So it gave him the ability to go down the learning curve to say, hey, I need to refine my skills. I need to refine my body and my physical makeup a little bit. So that actually gave him the ability to even do that, because to step in when he stepped in, he's one of those, a lot of the skills were lacking. But his ability to come in and demolish a few folks actually gave him a little bit of longevity in the league to where he could spend time on that learning curve.
And you hope that the curve comes up as you progress, so you don't stack up the losses. Right, is the best way. The UFC's tough. Listen, it's not easy. It's not for everybody, right?
I had an interesting conversation last week with a coach who coaches a lot of great fighters out of Sweden. One in particular, Gokhan Saki, who made the switch over. World-renowned kickboxer, unbelievable monster in the kickboxing world, and transitioned into MMA. And when he got into the UFC, his debut fight, he had some struggles up and down, ended up clipping the guy, knocking him out. And then his next bout is against Khalil Roundtree. And when you are fighting someone and there is now a new sense of wrestling, there is the potential someone may drop their level and shoot in on your legs. It changes how you deliver. It changes how you defend. It really your stance and how you're moving and how you're using your feints. All that starts to shift. And when everyone saw Khalil Roundtree land the big right hand on Gokhan and put him down, they were like, what, this guy's a world-class kickboxer? That's terrible. And it's like, no, it doesn't mean he's bad at boxing or kickboxing. He doesn't understand yet. He's still going through the learning curve of dealing with that on top of the threat of having to wrestle. So he's someone that has, he kind of
the game within the game.
The game within the game. Not to mention, they're only seeing the crossover inside the octagon. Like Gokhan in particular, like he had issues with reoccurring injuries, shoulders, knees, back, all coming from installing grappling and wrestling training. His body just wouldn't hold up to it. He's having a hard time holding up to it. That's to be well-rounded. It's more than just practicing skills. It's having the durability to handle all those skills. Just like a decathlete, man. Those decathletes, people are like, oh, he's fit and he can jump high and he can throw stuff far. To be able to handle the training for that, you've got to have some serious durability in your soft tissue and some resiliency in your nervous system to be able to handle that type of training load, that type of skill acquisition over and over and over again. It's the same thing with fighting, except you're getting punched in the face and kicked in the stomach and all that kind of fun stuff.
Now, if you want to work with somebody or somebody wanted to work with you, not everybody has access to the PI. Is there an outlet for that?
Not really. So I know what you're doing, you little shit. Me and my wife actually do a little bit of,
because your wife's world class too.
Yeah, my wife is doing
some
coaching.
To get you some
my
love.
Wife is doing some coaching locally. We've got a little group that we started through a friend's gym. And
I've never had anyone call me a little shit.
You a little shit. And man, it's been a lot of fun. It's honestly, it's general public. We've got stay-at-home moms. We've got some retired military, some active military. We've got some kids. We got kids coming in with their moms.
We got some kids.
Like I got a 17-year-old kid. He comes in with his non-English speaking mom who's in her late 40s. And they tear it up together. And so that's been a fun little side project. It's not a big blown out thing where we're like, all the masses, the members come on in. But if you'd like to check it out, we do have an IG page. You can go on there and DM us with questions. Even if you don't come to us directly for anything, we're always happy to answer questions. That IG's ABS Performance. And you can look.
But I think you kind of have that, right? Like you gotta give a little outlet to the community.
That, and honestly, it's an outlet for myself. Like, it's fun as hell. We have a blast with it. When you have someone, fighters, look, man, I've been at this since about 2005, and fighters are some of the most entertaining, just courageous, adventurous athletes I've ever worked with. I mean, there's never a dull moment. They're a blast. But they're also working towards they're working towards employment. They're working towards a job.
Right.
When I get a 50-year-old woman who's been inactive because she's
working towards functioning in life.
Right. And you watch her pick up half her body weight in kettlebells and move it around skillfully. It's like, holy shit, that's badass. And I'm not paying her to do that. She's paying us to do that. Like, that's what's pretty cool. So, and we tell people, look, our gym, if you want 6-pack abs and you want to do a booty camp class, that's not the place for
Fit
it.
Booty Boot Camp?
Yeah.
This isn't a Fit Booty Boot Camp.
Our gym, our classes are called the Capable Human Project. So if you're looking at trying to be a more capable human being and you want life to be a little bit more fruitful because you're physically able to do the things that you want to do, then those are the kind of the people
I like that. Capable human.
That's it.
It sounds like it's going to teach me where to hide the body. And that's what I'm interested in. Maybe it's hiding my own disgusting body or hiding another body. We'll see. There's no hope for me. because I like snacks too much. There's absolutely no hope for me. I'm as good as dead. But I think Bo's hell-bent on trying to help me. So to everybody out there, maybe we'll wink start a Patreon or a GoFundMe, a hope for John. We'll try to save what's left of me. We'll see. I'm prepared to donate this body to science. I don't know how I've made it this far.
The Bartolo cadaver lab.
Yeah, the cadaver lab. It'd be a good cut. It'll be fun. Listen, I love what you're doing, and I got some insight when I got to tour the PI and spend some time walking around there and getting to know you. This is a very different podcast from the last, in the sense that I understand how you teach a little bit better and what you do and what you're doing over there. And like I said, it's an awesome place. I'm looking forward to the renovation, the things that you guys do. It's got to be fun now that crowds are coming back in. We had the chance to go sneak to a fight, I should say, before all this kind of broke out. So it's fun seeing it back in action. Is it fun for you to kind of have a little bit more of the crowd interference and just kind of the intensity comes back, right? Even if you're not in the building.
No doubt. I mean, you can feel it from the fighters. They're excited about it, and we're an athlete-centered institute, so
and it plays a factor.
We feel. Oh, it's huge. I mean, there were so many of them when we got 2-3 weeks into fighting with no crowd. They were like, you know what? That was actually pretty cool. There was almost like a novelty to it. It was like I could hear my coaches, I could talk shit to my guy, and he was talking shit to me, and we could hear it. And it was just that was kind of cool. It was like a surreal kind of thing. You get about 3 months into that, they were like, dude, where are the crowds at? When are we getting that back?
Need some action.
And everyone saw it. I mean, our first fight back in Jacksonville with a crowd, I mean, the first 2-3 fights, fighters were just gassing out like crazy because they were so stoked up to be in there. I mean, the strike counts were through the roof. The takedown attempts were through the roof. It was just like they had never fought. It was like their debut fight. And some of them, it was their debut. But just the energy was so electric because of the crowd noise. And now that's caught back on. Every fighter now is like, oh, wait, because we've had some with a crowd, we've still had a couple without a crowd, and they're like, as soon as they get booked, they're like, wait a minute, does that one have a crowd?
I meant to ask you, do you have the ability to pump crowd noise into the PI?
We do. They do it a lot upstairs in the MMA floor, so around the octagon and stuff. The first time we did that was when Conor was getting ready for the Mayweather boxing match. And he was upstairs, and they're like, is there any way we could replicate some noise? And I mean, I don't know how many freaking thousands of dollars of speaker systems are up there, but
it's a lot.
Like,
it's a lot of shit.
We can make it pretty loud. And so they did, man. They were rocking music and crowd noise and all kinds of stuff.
Any distraction.
As long as we don't have to hear the woos.
Yeah. Any distraction is helpful, I would think, because they've been doing that for years at NFL stadiums too.
Yep.
So
it's in the stadium.
It's definitely a technique. No doubt. Now, I'm excited. I think with the renovation, with some of the things to come, the crowd's coming back, it's going to be a fun summer, and we get another Conor fight coming up, which will be a lot of fun. How involved do you get with Conor when he's in town?
Conor's got a great team, great staff around him, and he travels everybody. Yep, he brings everyone with him when they come around. Super professional group. Typically his team comes in a little bit early. They'll kind of chat through what they're trying to plan out, what they're trying to run there. Dr. Julian Dalby kind of heads up all of his conditioning and his S&C work. So we'll kind of, once they've got a plan coordinated, we'll kind of work with them to establish a schedule, make sure they have everything they need, and just sort of play liaison for them if there's stuff they're looking for. Because just like any other training camp, man, when sometimes you make alterations on the fly. So we're just there to be accessible for them. So if they have any curveballs or they need to make any changes or anything, we're just there to help as much as we can.
Is that something where the place has to be emptied out? It's like he wants supreme privacy.
I mean, to an extent, right? He just doesn't want people running up to him. Hey, can I take a selfie? While he's in the middle of trying to be focused, hitting mitts or doing a workout or whatever. But outside of that, I mean, every remark I've heard from a fighter that's in there, they're like, oh man, I chatted with Conor in the locker room. He was freaking super down to earth dude. And he is. I mean, he's about as nice as they come. But when it's time to work, the dude's working and he does not want to be interrupted.
And it's just your opinion. Is this it for him? I mean, he's got nothing left to conquer.
I don't know. You look at
what would you do, right? I mean, that's all you can say.
It's really a matter of what entertains him, right? Like what's what are you after it? Could he sit back? Absolutely. Could he go in and fight a whole bunch of people? I mean, he totally could. It's really boils down to he's in a position he kind of just do what he wants. Like, what do you want to do? But the hard part is a guy like that doesn't want to fight, the top 15. He wants to fight inside the top 5. So it's like, I think once he gets to a point, if they're not offering him anybody inside the top 5, I don't know that for him.
Yeah, and I think if he wins, maybe you see him vie for something. Because why not?
Yep.
Right? If he loses, maybe he says, this is it.
Sure.
Why continue on?
Yeah,
it's a hard question.
Well, he's in a great position to make that decision. He can do kind of what he wants. He's financially stable. He's got some other avenues of income, other projects he likes
Sold
to
the
work
booze.
on. Yeah.
Sold the booze.
Yep. And he's got his family's growing. They just went to 5. They're 5 deep now. So
he's the most successful. There's no doubt.
Yeah, I think he is a great example of someone who has capitalized on his likeness. He recognized it early on, and he jumped on it. And, I mean, what he's unfolded in terms of revenue and things the last couple of years, I mean, he had been developing that prior to. He's had a vision for it. And that not everyone has that. We have some that have it, and they still struggle to do it. He's someone that had it and just executed it beautifully.
Well, I think we all wish we had it, right?
No doubt.
I think we all wish we could get a bag of money. But do you lose, and as a trainer you've been around this, you lose some of the vigor for that high-level climb?
I've said this to you before. Like, you want to progress. You want to, if you want to influence, if you want to build revenue, you want to do all those things. Me personally, I want to do it at a pace and at a level where I can protect my image, where I can protect my family, where I can protect my principles and the things that have built me up to this point. So I think, everyone has the choice to decide what that is. And I feel like when that pace gets disrupted and they're on a rocket ship to the top, I think you lose some of those things. And that's when certain things get sacrificed and mistakes get made. And so, yeah, I mean, if we ever get that shot, I just hope that it's done at a pace that I'm comfortable with, or that, that people are comfortable with, so that we can still maintain the things that are fundamentally us.
Yeah, you don't want to lose, who you are, what makes you you,
no doubt,
in the process. Now, nutrition-wise, you're getting into hunting. Deep.
Almost obsessive.
It's obsessive. Deep. Do you believe in that in terms of farming your own food, and the closer you can get farm to table or field to table is a better thing? I mean, do you have any science behind that, or you just feel that it's better?
So there are others that can definitely speak deeper on the science than me. I grew up around farm. My mom's side of the family, we're all farmers. We were always around fresh produce. I mean, it had dirt on it. It just came out of the field.
Picked it from the vine.
There was no artificial, when I was a kid, there was no artificial fertilizer.
If you're Italian or Spanish or Mexican, whatever,
yeah,
you picked it you went out back and you got it from the vine.
Exactly. I mean, I can remember being a kid sitting down for lunch with my dad. He'd walk outside in the garden, pull a fresh jalapeno out, bring it in, slice it up, and that's what we were eating on the side with whatever we were eating, for a meal that day. So it's like, we just always had it. But there was never anything for pest control. There was never artificial fertilizers. My mom's family, they would rotate the fields. So you'd run all the cattle in one field for a year, whatever it was. And then that became the produce field the next year, and the cattle moved to this other field. And you just rotate the fields. The cattle are fertilizing the field. That dirt is as fertile as it gets.
Do you think it gets super dangerous when, I don't know if it's Bill Gates, he wants people to eat that fake meat and shit?
Yeah, man.
That's a slippery slope. There's more chemicals in that.
That's when you have alternative agendas kicking in. I mean,
right.
If you got all these millionaires that are owning what are they saying, pea factories or whatever this shit is, yeah, they want to make more money. So what are they going to do? They're going to sway the public's opinion on what food is or what healthy food is. So let's make a documentary and we'll put that shit out, and then we'll make the masses watch that. We'll get one of the biggest platforms like a Netflix to show it, so it's accessible to everybody right inside their house or by their cell phone or their iPad while they're traveling. You can see it everywhere. It's
terrifying,
right? But so getting down to the science of it, do I know all the science? No. I can tell you I love the way it tastes. When I've killed an animal, I've cleaned that animal, I've harvested it, I've treated that meat, I've taken care, I seasoned it, and now I'm feeding it to my family. I'm eating it. One thing, that feels good. Two, dude, it tastes amazing.
Well, I believe you perform better on things like elk and bison. I have no science. Disclaimer? I have no science. Let me look into the camera.
Yeah.
I have absolutely no science that backs this up whatsoever. But I just have always believed, whether it's good farm to table elk or it's bison, I've always felt the meat runs a little cleaner through your system. You feel better eating it, and you recover a lot better. No science.
Yeah, I mean, look, half my family comes from a Hispanic background, a Native American background, and look, there's a lot of talk like, hey, if you eat a bear, you're taking some strength from that bear. If you eat a mountain lion, you're taking some strength from that. If you eat whatever, you know what I mean? So I'm with you. I don't have the science behind that, but I just feel better whenever I can.
I feel like we just practiced ayahuasca. I feel like a shaman.
When you can feed on hardier things, you feel hardy, right? The same thing with like fresh broccoli. Like
I'm gonna go eat
real
a shark.
Broccoli that's grown not from like hormones and other shit, but just real. When you bite into it, you're like, wow, that's real. That's not prefabricated.
Those chemicals are fucking scary they put in shit. You'll grow like a third eyeball, your dick falls off or something.
You listen to I can't remember the lady's name that was on Rogan. She freaked me and my wife out, but just talking about the exposure to plastics.
Oh.
And how the average size of the male taint has shrunk by, I don't know, fucking half
the
an
male
inch or something.
taint.
Yeah, over the last 3 generations. So we're running around holding our kids upside down like, let me get a measuring tape. I'm like, honey, what are you doing?
The male taint.
But that lady scared the hell out of us. But you can't get away from it. Look at even the healthy things that I eat. So let's say, I got this fresh farm to table. What's it packaged in? Oh, plastic wrap, a plastic bag, or shrink wrap, whatever. My vitamins. Oh, everyone needs vitamins. Where they come in? A plastic bottle. Like, you can't get away from it. Infants. My wife works in a NICU, in a NICU hospital. As soon as that baby gets put into an incubator, all the tubes that are running all the nutrients to this kid and everything, it's all plastic. Every bit of it. It's like we are light years away from being able to get away from that. If it's as detrimental as what this woman laid it out to be, which her life's work is.
I'm sure Elon Musk will find a solution somewhere, something.
Or he just won't allow plastic on Mars.
It's a possibility. It's scary. No, the chemical stuff is incredible. And you could do it. We go down a rabbit hole in nutrition. We could spend, an hour down there. That's easy. But I agree with you. I think something to be said about the farm to table aspect, the homegrown, bringing it in, preparing it yourself, and doing it all yourself has something to be said about it. And I think my hope was that during COVID we moved more towards that. And I thought that there was that possibility with the movement to get outside, everything else. I love that you're getting into hunting deeper, and I think in time that's going to play into some of your knowledge, and I think you'll be able to do, because when you dive into stuff, you tend to dig deeper, and I think you'll start to look more into the nutrition, and you're a knowledgeable guy, and you'll piece it all together, and you'll be like, I consumed the bear, and now I'm stronger. You eat the bear, or the bear eats you, right?
That's right.
So, yeah, we'll see.
I eat the bear, and now my unibrow gets thicker.
Now, exactly. Now, who built your rifle?
Woo! Ballistic Advantage down in Florida.
Shameless plug.
Man, I freaking love those guys. I mean, look, it's awesome. They built me just an incredible piece of engineering. But getting to hang out with Clint around
Adam
around the fight night, we got to take them to a fight. I mean, just super cool dudes. You listen to them, how they built their business and like what they're passionate about. When I put my finger on that trigger and I think about their story and I think about where that thing came from, I mean, this is a long line of engineering. I can't imagine what they started with when Clint was first boring out.
Don't cry for them. The barrel game's strong. Don't cry for them.
So it just, to me, man, it was just super cool to get to meet them firsthand, listen to where that came from, and then a few weeks later to be able to put that piece of hardware in my hand.
It's amazing what goes into it. You take for granted the engineering involved and everything, and there's a lot.
And the development, those guys aren't stopping. What they're producing now is, it's just upgrading year by year, and they're pushing. I mean, they were pushing all through COVID, and that stuff is admirable. Those are products you want to buy. Those are things that you want to have in your safe. Those are things that you want to have at home.
I think it serves a need. I think it serves a tremendous need, and I think you getting out and hunting is going to be one huge aspect to fill in the nutritional blocks, and I'm very interested in how that plays out. Now, with all that being said, what's next for you in the UFC? You got this renovation coming up.
Yeah. So, the renovation is it's a project, it's a chore, it's going to allow us to be able to get into some other things. But aside from that, I mean, we're anxious to get back into the routine of live fights, people being at live fights, and also having a lot of our restrictions lifted, so it's easier to get fighters in to visit with us. I mean, everyone thinks that, it's COVID, but all these athletes had exclusive access to the PI all the time, and that's just not the case. We had a lot of red tape around what we could do in order to keep commissions happy, to keep our events safe. So if we had a fight here in town at the Apex, there were certain hours, certain days and times where the facility was blocked up for fighters on that fight card only, so other fighters couldn't come in, and then we would have this whole disinfection period between the time when those fighters got done and the outer camp fighters could come in. I mean, it was a lot of hoops to jump through. And if you're like, oh, they get access for free, they have all this free food and all. Yes, but if you're coming in from New York, or if you're coming in from Florida and you come to the PI to be told that you actually only have access to the facility 3 or 4 hours out of the day, you can't go get your food, we can deliver it to you. There's just some things you're like, well, it's not worth it. I don't want to take that trip. So in a lot of ways, our volume was down a little bit. Now we quickly got into a groove where we were figuring out ways around some of those loopholes to keep interaction high, but we're anxious to get back into that high volume of interaction with our roster.
Now, going forward, after the renovation, it's going to create a much more malleable environment that you'll be able to do a lot more. It's going to be a lot of fun. I think how these cards play out, how the year plays out for you guys, I think will be interesting. I'm still rooting for, a lot of these different cards that we know about coming up and some that we don't, and people that we know. Do you ever have any favorites that you train?
Oh man, I get this question a lot. And
it's a touchy one, right? Mm-hmm. You don't want to alienate anybody, but you do get favorites.
Pretty quickly when I jumped on with the UFC, I got out of, you just get to a point, you're not motivated by like necessarily a fighter winning or how many wins they have or how quickly they're streaking to the top. With what we do every day, we want to see results. We want to see improvement and progress. So the ones that are my favorites, they're the ones that are consistently making the most progress. They're the ones that are giving the science a chance, giving the planning and the preparation and the cohesion and the harmony of all these services, giving it a chance. That's where the evolution of the sport's coming from. Have you installed your nutrition program at the highest level with what we think your martial arts training is at the highest level? What's that look like when those two are married? How perfected can that get? Or when you're installing an appropriate strength and conditioning program with nutrition, with your MMA training, so those are the ones that are my favorites. So, our frequent flyers, the Jessica I, Jojo Calderwoods, the Francis Ngannou, these are the Dan Igues. These are ones that they spend a lot of time there, and they're not just there because it's free. They're there because they're involved in the process. They're investing in their careers. They're investing in their process and trying to perfect. And these are all people that are experienced, right? Everyone I just listed, for the exception of Francis, they all have, they battled through the AMI ranks. They battled through other leagues, smaller leagues. Dan Ige is coming from the Contender Series. They've worked their way through. They're trying to really refine their approach and how they get ready for fights. And we have a lot of them. The list goes on. We have a ton of them. We have almost 30, I think we're in the mid 30, 35, 36, what I call resident athletes that are here the majority of the year, if not live here full time. And they are highly, highly involved in the process all the time.
I don't know how you can't. Maybe I'm naive.
I mean, there's some that don't. I mean, I had Kevin Lee probably laugh at me if he hears this, but in the first couple weeks we were open, I was talking to Kevin Lee, and he's like, "Why would I work with you? You're free. My guy's like a couple $100 a month or whatever. Why wouldn't I work with that guy?
$100 a month,
yeah, whatever it is. It's like I don't know how much it was, but I get it. I totally resonate with that. I'm like, I understand, man. Why would you? Obviously, if that costs something, it must be worth more, right?
Right.
And now, Kevin Lee's in our program. He's in our doors every single day.
I would have said this costs you a lot. See how much you complain about your pay?
Yeah. Yeah. There's some of that, but it's like anything else. You have to give it a chance at first, and then you have to take that chance and really get involved. And in a lot of ways, that's how we're graded as professionals. It's based on retention. It's not like, okay, how many wins and losses does the PI have? It's how much have you been able to retain someone's attention so that you can influence how they're training and preparing? Because ultimately, that's why the Institute is there. It's to accelerate the evolution of the sport. And you can't do that if you're not influencing fighters, their behaviors, their training behaviors. And that's ultimately what we're there to do.
I selfishly wish and hope that the PI ultimately long-term gets opened up to alumni and to folks that have graduated the UFC or retired within the UFC.
Sure, and we've had a bunch of them. I mean, we've had a lot of them come through. That it really is. It boils down to if they're interested.
Yeah,
you know? We've had
available.
some come through, and then some are just like, I'm not training. What are you talking about?
Long-term.
I'm enjoying my time.
Retired.
Yeah.
Pull the retirement card. I'm retired. This is what retirement looks
when
like.
we first opened, man, I think it was, I don't know, maybe the first year, maybe the second year. Eves Edwards came in. Eves was still doing some announcing, commentating, and he was like, "Hey, I'm gonna be here for 2 weeks. You think I can just like be a part of the PI system? Just throw me in." And we're like, "Yeah, sure." So we worked with Eves for a couple of weeks. It was awesome. I mean, he was doing a cardio regimen. He was doing a weightlifting regimen. He was going into PT. He was doing recovery. The whole nine, just to get a taste of, man, what's this look like? This stuff didn't exist when I competed. So we've had a couple of those. They've been fun.
And now they recently, I think it's recently, what did they just legalize? Weed now, right?
Yes.
Is that having an effect on training?
I haven't paid attention too much. I mean, I can tell you we have a lot of fighters that indulge in marijuana, but whether they're using
it's smart for them.
Well, it depends, because some have an approach around recovery and winding down and that kind of thing, and then others are just massive recreational users. So it's like, at what point
do you guys start to plug in some science behind that?
We honestly haven't. We haven't dove in a whole lot. It's just not one of our highest level priorities in terms of what we're researching at the moment. I mean, a lot of our big ticket items revolve around concussion protocols, things that are on the farther end of the health spectrum, as we're trying to preserve our clientele. So we haven't gotten that far into the whole.
I think it'd be an interesting study.
But I can tell you, studies are developing around both the use of marijuana, the use of hallucinogenics, and it's going down that road. We're just not very deep in it yet. Yeah,
I think you hit the nail on the head. It's going to first have to be classified by recreational users and those that use it for recovery, because they're two very different things. Some people can justify a lot, as and with any substance, and some people understand that there's a place for recovery and winding down, like you said, and some people are high intensity individuals, and there could be some benefits to them kind of cooling down. But that would be one of the more interesting studies, and I think it would put you guys on a very cutting edge to get kind of where that all fits in and how you would segregate it and kind of compartmentalize a lot of that knowledge.
It's getting there. We've got a couple of our executives are getting into those conversations with companies that are diving in deep into the research around it. So more to come.
Dun, dun, dun. All right, listen, we got to go eat. Plug anything you got to plug. Let everybody know where they can find you, and let's go eat some food.
Sounds good. I mean, you can find me in Las Vegas at 6650 South Torrey Pines. No, I'm just kidding.
That's probably real.
My IG handle is Bo.Sandoval. Feel free to shoot me a DM. I always tell people, man, I really work my butt off to answer all my DMs. Occasionally I'm slow. I think it's funny every now and then when I answer a question and the guy's like, "Man, really, thanks for answering my question. That was 3 months ago."
You're real.
That was 3 months ago, but I'm like, I apologize. I will work my butt off to answer them all. I love conversing, love sharing, and talking to other professionals that are going through the same learning curves that we're going through. So my Twitter handle is Oli Strength. You can hit me on that as well. Other than that, that's about it.
You active on Twitter?
Ish.
You don't strike me as an active on Twitter. I would have tagged you.
Ish.
I should tag you. I'm going to start tagging you. Anyway, listen, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you coming out. This is a good one.
Love being out here. Love hanging around.
You're here so much, we got to record every now and again. It only makes sense. And I'm going to wear my heart monitor thing. You're going to show me how that works, and I'm going to get healthy, guys.
Slowly
I'm working on it.
a regiment.
I'm as good as dead. Anyway, I appreciate everyone. I appreciate all the sponsors. Head over to www.johnbartoloshow.com. Go check out a complete list of the sponsors there. I want to thank a few of them now. Gallo Technologies, Rhino Metals, Blackwater Ammunition, CAA Gear Up USA. Go buy an MCK. It'll make shooting your Glock fun. Enforce Weapon Lights, Pulsar Thermal Imaging Technology, Kenzie's Optics, and anybody I missed. Scott Fulkortson. Scotty Fulkortson Firearms. Go check him out. Scott will appreciate that. And if you guys haven't, go check out all Bo's stuff. He's doing amazing work. I love the PI. Can't wait till it's open. Best place to get lunch around. And get some training. I knew you'd get a kick out of that. I appreciate everybody who supports the show. Please leave a review. I do a terrible job asking for reviews. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. We're out.